All right. But before we get into the main topic of this video, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the matchmaking that is commonly used, that is commonly done using Parashara. Okay, I'll just give out the techniques that are used in the BPHS, which Parashara elaborates for all of us. Okay, so while evaluating marriage, the first thing you need to do is that you have to look for significant relationships. Okay, significant relationships and marriage to occur in the periods and the sub periods of planets that are connected to the 1-7 axis in the birth chart or in the Navamsha. Okay, now when we speak about marriage and when we speak about a relationship, both of them are different in Vedic astrology. Okay, so if you are in a relationship, even if you are in a platonic relationship which has extended for over a year, we will consider that as marriage. Okay, that is the difference, right? So this is the first rule in BPHS. You have to look for significant relationships or marriage to occur in the periods and sub periods of the planets connected to the connected to the 1-7 axis in the birth chart and in the Navamsha. That is the first rule. Then what Parashara also tells us is that there are two natural marriage giver planets. Okay, one is Venus and the other is Rahu. Right, one is Venus and the other is Rahu. So if you study the agenda of the planets in BPHS, you'll understand why they are called as marriage givers, because they want to, they want to populate the planet. Venus, particularly Venus, it wants to populate the planet. Okay, and to populate the planet, they two people have to come together, right? So the period of the natural marriage givers like Venus and Rahu, it becomes very, very important. Okay, for example, the Venus Rahu period or the Rahu Venus period. So Venus and Rahu, they might or might not be connected to the 7th house, but if someone is running, if someone is running a Venus Rahu or a Rahu Venus Vimshottari Dasha, either in the birth chart or in the Navamsha, or if they are connected, okay, then that period can be said that it is said that that period is it has the potential of giving you a marriage or a relationship. Okay. Then the other point, if you look at the Navamsha, okay, if you look at the Navamsha, if you're running the Dasha of a planet that is placed in the 2nd house or the 7th house or the 12th house of Navamsha, then also it is said to give marriage or a relationship, right? So this is again true. Suppose you have Saturn in the 2nd house of Navamsha, and that Saturn may not be connected to the 7th house of Rashi chart. Okay, that Saturn may never be connected to the 7th house of Rashi chart, but if you're running the Dasha of Saturn and Saturn is connected to the 2nd house of Navamsha, then it is capable of giving you marriage, because the 2nd house stands for family, right? And then you have to apart from all these factors, what Parashara says that you have to examine the 7th house not only from the ascendant but also from the moon. Okay, and then you also have to examine the 7th house from Venus, right? Because why? Because Venus is a natural karaka of the 7th house, and many astrologers will time marriage by looking at the 7th house from marriage. Sorry, 7th house from Venus. So as to say. Okay, so this has to be done if you are doing this, if you are examining the 7th house from the ascendant, from the moon and from Venus, you have to do it from both the birth chart as well as the Navamsha. Okay, and then you have to look for repeating themes and for dominant planets, right? So this can be very cumbersome. This can be very, very difficult to do if you are using Parashara, right? Then now I'll come to the problem. Okay, why I'm especially focused on the Darakaraka, and why I'm especially focused on timing marriage using the Darakaraka, because as we know, a lot of stuff has been said as to why the Charakarakas or the Jaimini concept. Of course, it's a Jaimini concept, but there is they can be used. Just a request. Yeah, they can be used in conjunction with your Parashara readings as well. Okay, so of course Charakaraka is a Jaimini concept, but the point is why I'm using this Charakaraka, and there is another, so as to say, magical Dasha of Jaimini, which is known as the Chara Dasha. Okay, I'll come to both of the concepts, but then My problem with my problem with Parashara is due to the Dasha system, which is the Vimshottari Dasha system based on the nakshatras of the moon. Okay, so not only you have to not only you have to find the exact degrees of the moon, there is also some controversy regarding the regarding the ayanamsha, right? There is some controversy regarding the ayanamsha. Some people will say use this ayanamsha, some people will say use that ayanamsha. Generally, the general consensus is that we will use Lahiri Chitra Paksha ayanamsha, right? So this is my main problem, because because the planetary periods in a Vimshottari Dasha are quite long, right? They are quite long. And if the birth time varies, varies significantly, then what will happen is that you will get the Dasha system in a very long sequence. Okay. So, for example, as I said, the natural marriage giver planets according to PPHS, according to Parashara, are Venus and Rahu. But if you look at the length of the Dashas, right? If you look at the length of the Dashas that are, that are assigned to Venus and Rahu, Parashara has given 18 years to, 18 years to Rahu, and Venus runs the longest Mahadasha of 20 years. So just because someone is running, someone has Venus connected to the 7th house, I cannot say that, okay, you will get married in these 20 years. That would be very, very vague, isn't it? Suppose someone is a 20-year-old and he has come to me, or he or she has come to me for a consultation, and then Venus Mahadasha is running. I cannot say that, okay, in these 20 years you will get married. That will be absolutely vague. For example, even Rahu has 18 years, right? So I cannot go and tell a client that in these 18 years you will get married, right? Because in the Vimshottari Dasha scheme, the length of the Antardashas will depend on the length of the Mahadasha. Okay, that means for a planet, for a long dasha like Venus or Rahu or even Saturn, the Antardasha periods will also be very, very long. Okay, the Antardasha period will be very, very long. But now compare that to the Chara Dasha of Jaimini. Okay, just Chara Dasha. If you are not familiar, I am not asking you to learn Chara Dasha, but most of the astrological softwares like Jagannath Hora or Divya Chakshu, you may be using Jyotish, Sri Jyotish Star, or Parashara's Light also. Most of the softwares will have that Charadasha, Charadasha configuration. You just configure it to Charadasha instead of Vimshottari Dasha, and because Charadasha is based on the sign of the ascendant. Okay, so generally what happens is that even if the birth time is say on and off by 5 to 10 minutes, but the point is we can get the ascendant correct. Even then the ascendant can be gotten correct, right? It will only be a difference in degrees, right? So in that case, what happens is that the timing of the Chara Dasha, if the birth chart, even if the birth timing, so as to say, varies by 15 to 20 minutes, sorry, by 5 to 10 minutes, then also the Chara Dasha will come out correctly. Okay, this makes it very, very useful. Okay, this makes it very, very useful for for timing the marriage, because then you are at least sure that even if you don't know the correct degrees of the ascendant, but at least the Dasha system is correct, right? And of course, Chara Dasha, the calculations by Shri K. N. Rauji are used in almost all the softwares. Okay, so that is his stellar contribution as the patriarch of modern Indian astrology, including B.V. Ramanji. Okay, so Charadasha is the contribution of Shri K. N. Rauji. Okay. So when you speak about Charadasha, right? So the maximum period of a Charadasha is 12 years. Okay, and they can be as little as a year also, right? For example, the Charadasha of Cancer is for I think for 12 years, if I'm not mistaken. But they can be as little as a year, right? And the maximum length of any sub period is 1 year. So if any client is coming to you or coming to me and saying that when I should get married, if I use the Darakaraka correctly along with the Charadasha, right, along with the Chara Dasha, then I can say that okay, within this year you will get married. So this is a more accurate description of marriage, right? This is a more accurate description of a marriage. So looking at the particular period or a sub period in the Chara Dasha, it will show a particular it will show a particular potential for a relationship or a marriage. And because the sub period will not exceed 1 year, so at least you can confidently predict to the client that that you will get married within this year or that year. Okay. So I hope I'm clear why I'm using Jaimini. Any questions to this point? Okay. Okay. I'll just proceed with with my screen. Okay. So rules of rules of Jaimini. First, the rules of just go and just run you through the rules, right? So the first rule is that you have to understand the Chara Dasha scheme. As I said, you don't have to don't have to go into details of Jaimini. You just set the Dasha setting to Chara Dasha. That will be enough, right? And if you have to use if there is an option in the software regarding whose calculations you are using, then you just opt for Sri K. and Raoji's calculations. Okay. And then you have the Arudha Lagna. Okay, Jaimini also has a very important concept of Arudha Padas. Of course, nowadays it is mixed with Parashara also, but Arudha Padas are primarily the concept of Jaimini. Okay, so I'll show you how to how to calculate the Arudha of a house. All right, I'll show you how to calculate the Arudha of a house. Then you will understand. So all the houses will have an image of themselves. Okay, for example, the Arudha of the the Arudha of the Lagna is known as the Arudha Lagna. Then the Arudha of the second house is known as AL2. The Arudha of the sixth house is known as AL6, and so on. Okay, there are certain exceptions. I'll use those exceptions as well. Okay, I'll just use those exceptions as well. Now, then the other, the other important topic of Jaimini is Rashi Drishti. Okay, so Rashi Drishti, what happens is just like in Parashara, just like the planets have their aspect. Okay, in Jaimini, even the signs will have their aspect. So these are more permanent. These are more permanent in nature. Planetary aspects are temporary. Okay, but Rashi aspects are permanent. These are circumstances. Okay, planetary aspects or Graha Drishti are desires. Rashi Drishti are circumstances. So the rule is all the movable Rashis, that means Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, they will make aspect into the fixed Rashi. Okay, except the ones near to it. So if you have to, if you have to see the Rashi Drishti of Aries, Aries will aspect Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, but not Taurus, because Taurus is just next to Aries. Okay, suppose you have to see the Rashi Drishti of Cancer, then Cancer will aspect Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, but not Leo, because Leo is just next to Cancer. Okay. Similarly, if you have to see the Rashi Drishti of Capricorn, then Capricorn will aspect Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio, but not Aquarius, because Aquarius is just next to Capricorn. That is how we will look at the Rashi Drishti. And the same is true vice versa also. For example, if you have to see the Rashi Drishti of Taurus, then it will make an aspect into Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, but not into Aries, because Aries is just immediately before before Taurus. Suppose you have to see the Rashi Drishti by Aquarius, then it will make an aspect into Aries, Cancer, and Libra, but not into Capricorn, because Capricorn is just the just ahead of Capricorn is just ahead of Aquarius. Okay, so Rashi Drishti will Rashi Drishti holds true for Rashi Drishti will hold true for the planets as well as the signs. Okay, for example, suppose Surya is in Aries. Okay, Surya is in Aries, so that Surya will make an aspect in make an aspect to Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, right? And regardless of whatever planets are placed in Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, Surya will make an aspect there too. Okay. For example, again, I'm repeating for the convenience of those who are not familiar with Jaimini. Aries, suppose Surya is in Aries and you have to see the Rashi Drishti, right? So Aries will make an aspect into Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And suppose Mars is in Scorpio, then you will say that Surya is aspecting Mars, because Aries is aspecting Scorpio. Okay, and the reverse also holds true. Suppose Rahu is in suppose Rahu is in Aquarius. Okay, Rahu is in Aquarius, and then the moon is in Cancer. In that case, because Aquarius makes a Rashi Drishti onto Aries, Cancer, and Libra, so you will say that Rahu being in Aquarius also aspects the moon in Cancer. So that is how Rashi Drishti works. Okay, and then this is very, very interesting, all the dual Rashis aspect each other. Okay, all the dual Rashis, they aspect each other. For example, suppose Mercury is in Gemini, okay, and Jupiter is in Sagittarius. In that case, both Mercury and Jupiter will aspect each other. Okay, suppose Saturn is in Virgo and Mars is in Pisces. In that case, both Mars and Saturn will aspect each other. Okay, so this is very, very important aspect. This is known as Jaimini aspect, but nowadays it is also used in Parashara. But I just wanted to make the rules clear. Okay, I'll just go to the chart analysis. I hope there are no questions till this point.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Just before in speaking about why Chara Dasha is more significant if you don't know the birth time. So that room for error is like 5 or 10 minutes for that.
No, it is actually, see, a lagna will be there for 2.5 hours. Okay, but then
Yeah, correct.
degrees, right? Suppose an ascendant is of so 29 degrees. So 5 minutes it will make a, it will, the next ascendant will be there for 5 minutes. In 5 minutes there will be a change in the ascendant. So I'm just leaving the room for error for for 15 to 20 minutes, or rather for 10 to 5 minutes to be very specific. But a lagna will be there, a rising sign will be there in the sky for around 2.5 hours.
Right, correct. So maybe, yeah, it's there for 2.5 hours. So the room for error, though, for the birth time,
It is minimized. If you're using Chara Dasha, at least for timing marriage, it is minimized.
it's minimized. So how much time could be off? I think that's my question.
No, that will see. The point is, suppose someone has an ascendant at 29 degrees. I'm just giving you an example. Someone at 29 degrees. Then even a change by 5 minutes will modify the ascendant, right?
Right.
But then suppose someone's ascendant is at 2 degrees of what?
Correct.
Then a change by half an hour or maybe a change by 45 minutes will not modify the ascendant.
Okay, so okay, got it. Okay, it depends on the degrees. If it's dead center, there's more leeway.
Yeah.
Like,
The ascendant
got
is
it.
less, then there is no leeway. Yeah. Okay, so I can proceed, right? All right. So Bill Clinton, right? Bill Clinton. So I'll just come to the before going to Bill Clinton's chart. I'll just come to the predictive principles that that the Upadesha Sutras of Jaimini has for us, right? So just make a mental note of it, because the recordings will be anyways available on YouTube. So just make a mental note of it. The first prediction, or the first predictive principle is that marriage will happen during the periods and sub-periods of signs occupied by the Darakaraka in the birth chart or Navamsha. So for those who don't know what the Darakaraka is, it is the lowest degree planet in the horoscope, excluding Rahu and Ketu. Okay, Ketu cannot be a Charakaraka because it's the Moksha Karaka. But some people will take Rahu. Okay, that is debatable. Some people will take Rahu as the Charakaraka. That is of course debatable. But because the general overview is that you can have only 7 Charakaraka, so I'm following that scheme. All right. So if you are taking Rahu as the Charakaraka, then you will have the 8 Charakaraka scheme. That is also correct. Okay, that is also correct. It depends on the logic that you are using. But just verify, just verify. That is the reason I have taken known charts. Okay, so that we can verify. So the general consensus is that there are 7 Charakarakas, and I'll be following that principle, right? So the first principle is that marriage will happen during the periods and sub-periods of signs that are occupied by the Darakaraka in the birth chart or in the Navamsha. That is first. And second, marriage will also happen in the periods and sub-periods of the signs where the Darakaraka falls in the opposite sign in the birth chart or a Navamsha. Okay, for example, if the Darakaraka, suppose the Darakaraka is Venus, and Venus is in Aries, then marriage will also the period or the sub period of Libra can give you marriage. Okay, suppose the Darakaraka is, say, Saturn, right? It is placed in Taurus, then the sub period of Scorpio can give you marriage. This is the second principle. Okay, just go to the chart. So this is Bill Clinton's chart, right? This is Bill Clinton's chart, and here Jupiter. Okay, here Jupiter becomes the Darakaraka because it is the lowest degree sign in having only 6 minutes into Libra. Okay, this is the lowest degree sign with 0 degrees in Libra, right? So in Clinton's chart, Jupiter, as I said, becomes the Darakaraka. It is placed in Libra. So here Jupiter is the indicator of the spouse. So if you look at the chart, this Darakaraka is Vargottama. So what is the meaning of Vargottama? Vargottama means if a planet goes into the same sign in Rashi or in Navamsha, or for that matter, any divisional chart, it becomes Vargottama. Okay. So you see Jupiter. It is going into Libra in both Rashi and Navamsha. So it becomes Vargottama. Now, what I stated in the second principle, the second predictive principle, is that the sign opposite to the Darakaraka, that means the sign seventh from the Darakaraka, is also potentially marriage giving, right? So because it is placed in Libra, the opposite sign is Aries, right? The opposite sign is Aries. So, the periods and the sub periods during the Chara Dasha of Aries will become eligible for giving a marriage or a relationship. Okay, if he's running the Chara Dasha, the period or sub period in the Chara Dasha of Aries, it becomes eligible for marriage. Okay, so if you look at Bill Clinton's life, he married Hillary Clinton in 1975 when he was running the period of Sagittarius and Aries. So again, by period, I am meaning Chara Dasha. Okay, don't take it as Timshottari Dasha. Okay, and for those who have joined late, you please, go through the initial part of the recording, right? So Sagittarius, as we know, it is ruled by the Darakaraka Jupiter, and Jupiter falls in the seventh house from Aries, right? So this Jupiter falls from the seventh house from Aries in both the birth chart and Navamsha. So that is the reason, by the second predictive principle, we could say, that he married Hillary in 1975 when he was running the Dasha of Sagittarius and Aries. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's go to the next chart. Okay, John F. Kennedy. Okay, John F. Kennedy. So again, a very popular American president. So look at this chart. So the Darakaraka is Jupiter. Okay, again the Jupiter Darakaraka. So it is placed in Taurus, of course. Jupiter is placed in Taurus, as you can see, along with Venus and Surya. So he married Jacqueline Bouvier in September 1953. Okay, so the point is, Jupiter rules Pisces and Sagittarius. Okay, so if you look at the I'm really sorry. If you look at the period of Pisces and Scorpio, he was running JF Kennedy was running this period in September 1952. So both his engagement and his wedding took place in the Chara Dasha of Pisces and Scorpio. Okay, so just like in in the case of Bill Clinton, this marriage also occurred in a sign which is ruled by Jupiter. Okay, and in a sub period where when Jupiter falls into seventh house. So he got married in the Dasha of Pisces and Scorpio. So Jupiter is in Taurus. So 7 houses away from Taurus is Scorpio. So as I said, the second principle and the first principle works in conjunction. Okay. Now, if you extend this principle, so seventh house from Scorpio is Venus. Okay, so that is placed in its own sign Taurus. Okay, and if you look at the life of Jacqueline Bouvier, she was regarded as a epitome of beauty and culture, right? So I'm just giving you an example of how you can extend this principle to predicting the characteristics and nature of the spouse also, right? And even if you look at the Janma Lagna of Kennedy, it is Virgo. Okay, so Jupiter is the seventh lord, and it is under the strong influence of Venus. So all these factors combined to bring him marriage and to bring him a very fashionable lady, Jacqueline Bouvier, in his life. Okay, all right. So this is one principle. Now again, make a mental note. The second principle I'll be the other predictive principles for that matter. So the other predictive principle to time marriage using Darakaraka is that marriage and relationship may also take place in the periods and sub periods of planets aspected by the Darakaraka in the birth chart or Navamsha. If the Darakaraka is making Rashi Drishti, not Graha Drishti alone, okay, it can be Graha Drishti also, but specifically if the Darakaraka is making Rashi Drishti to the to the planets, to certain planets, then marriage will happen in the periods and sub-periods of those planets upon which Darakaraka is having Rashi Drishti. And this is applicable in the birth chart as well as the Navamsha. Okay. Now, let's go to this chart. Hillary Clinton. So I've just taken her husband's chart. Now let's take a look at the wife's chart. So look at the moon. That is the Darakaraka. So the moon goes into Leo Amsha, right? If you look at the Navamsha, the moon goes into the sign of Leo. So it is the Leo Amsha. So when she married Bill Clinton in October 1975, she was running the Dasha of Capricorn and Pisces. Okay, so you can easily say that this principle works because the Darakaraka moon is in Pisces in the birth chart. Okay, but then you may ask why the major period of Capricorn, right? You may ask why the major period of Capricorn, because if you look at the Navamsha, the Darakaraka moon, which is placed in Leo Amsha, will aspect Capricorn by Rashi Drishti. Okay, the Darakaraka moon in the Navamsha will aspect, in a Leo Amsha, will aspect the sign Capricorn or the Capricorn Amsha. Okay. All right. So just to give you a summary of whatever we have done till now in these charts. Marriage will take place during the periods. Just let me remember. And marriage will take place during the periods and sub-periods of the signs occupied by the Darakaraka in the birth chart or in the Navamsha. That is number one. Number two, marriage can also happen during the periods and sub-periods of signs seventh house from where the Darakaraka is placed in either the birth chart or the Navamsha. Okay, the seventh house principle is very, very important. Suppose the Darakaraka is placed in Pisces, then marriage will take place in the periods or sub-periods of birth, right? Then marriage will also take place during the periods and sub-periods of planets aspected by the Rashi Drishti or the Graha Drishti of the Daraka in the birth chart or Navamsha, right? It can also take place, if you look at Hillary Clinton's chart, marriage can also take place during the periods or sub-periods of signs ruled by the Darakaraka. Okay, for example, if the Darakaraka is Saturn, then marriage can take place in the periods and sub-periods of Capricorn or Aquarius, right? Then it can also take place in the periods and sub-periods of the signs ruling the seventh house of the birth chart or the Navamsha. This principle is not using the Darakaraka. Okay, suppose the seventh lord in the birth chart is suppose Surya, then marriage can take place in the period of Leo. Okay, suppose the seventh lord is Jupiter, then marriage can take place in the periods of Pisces or Sagittarius. Okay. Now let's see how to calculate Arudha Pada. As I said, each house has a Arudha Pada. Okay, I'll just come back to the chart of Bill Clinton. Let's calculate here. Everyone can see. So each house, the 12 houses will have 12 Arudha Padas. The exception is that the house itself and the seventh house from that house cannot be the Arudha Lagna. Okay, for example, suppose you are calculating the Arudha Lagna for the first house. In that case, the first house or the seventh house cannot be the Arudha, right? So if that happens, okay, you will calculate 10 places away from either the first house or the 12th house. As an example, suppose someone is having Taurus Lagna with Venus. I'll just give you an example. Suppose you are calculating the Arudha Lagna and it has fallen in the seventh house. Okay, the Arudha Lagna of the first house has fallen in the seventh house. So you will calculate 10 places from the seventh house to arrive at the actual Arudha Lagna. So 10 places from the seventh house will come to the fourth house. Okay, but we are particularly interested in calculating the Arudha Pada of the seventh house. Okay, so just see how to calculate it. So the seventh house lord is Jupiter. Jupiter is placed in Libra. So you calculate how many signs has Jupiter traveled from Pisces to Libra. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So Jupiter has traveled 8 houses from Pisces to Libra, right? Now calculate the 8th house from this position of Jupiter. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the Arudha Pada of the 7th house is in the 9th house containing Rahu. Okay, I hope I'm being clear here. Let's look at another chart for the calculation. So again, look at this, look at this 7th house. It is Pisces. 7th house is Pisces, again ruled by Jupiter. Let's see, and Jupiter is placed in the Taurus. So let's see how many houses Jupiter has traveled from Pisces to Taurus. 1, 2, and 3. So Jupiter has traveled 3 houses, right? Jupiter has traveled 3 houses from Pisces to Taurus. Now calculate the third position, the third house from this Jupiter. So 1, 2, 3. So the Arudha Pada of the 7th house lies in the 11th house containing Saturn. Okay, so this is how we will calculate. Just to ensure that others don't have a confusion, let's look at it here. So the 7th house is ruled by Jupiter. Let's see, and then Jupiter has traveled 12 houses, right? Jupiter has traveled 12 houses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So Jupiter has traveled 12 houses to to Scorpio. Now calculate 12 houses from Jupiter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the Arudha Pada of the 7th house comes to the 5th house. So I hope we are clear with this calculation of Arudha Pada. Any question for this? For this? Otherwise, we can proceed.
Maybe do one more. Can we do one more example?
Yeah, sure. So just calculate the Arudha Pada of this chart again. So see, the Arudha Lagna, the Arudha, this is interesting. This brings in the exception. So the Arudha, the 7th house is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is placed just in the Arudha Lagna. Sorry, in the 7th house. So Mercury has not traveled anywhere. But as I said in the exception, the Arudha Lagna of the 7th house cannot be in the house itself or be 7 places away from that house. That means in the 1st house. So we have to calculate 10 houses from Mercury. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the Arudha Pada of the 7th house comes to the 4th house containing Saturn. Again, one example. Let's take Bill Clinton's Navamsha. So suppose we have to calculate the Arudha Pada of the 4th house. Of the 7th house. So the 7th house is ruled by Cancer. Let's look at the moon, which is placed in the 11th house. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the moon has traveled 5 houses from its position, right? Now calculate 5 houses from moon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the Arudha Pada of the 7th house comes to the 3rd house of Pisces, which is empty. Okay. So I hope I am clear with the examples. All right. So all right. So again, let's take the chart of Bill Clinton. So look at the chart of Bill Clinton, right? So we have determined the Arudha Lagna of Bill Clinton, right? If someone has a doubt, we'll again explain. The 7th house is lorded by Jupiter. Jupiter is placed 8 houses away from the 7th house. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So count 8 houses from Libra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the Arudha comes to the 9th house, right? The Arudha comes to the 9th house. That means this Taurus is the Arudha Pada of the 7th house, right? This Taurus is the Arudha Pada of the 7th house. So this actually, because it is the image, Arudha is the image. Okay, Arudha is the image of that house. Okay. Arudha is the image. The main meaning of Arudha is image. So because the 9th house becomes the image of the 7th house, so it becomes a very important sign or a very important house that can give indications about marriage and relationships between during its periods and subperiods. Okay, this ninth house, being an image of the seventh house, can give some important indications about marriage during its dasha or antardasha, the Chara dasha that I as to say. Okay, so if you look at the journey of Clinton, Bill Clinton, he married Hillary Clinton in Sagittarius Aries, as we have seen previously. But he had gotten engaged to her in the sub period of Taurus. Okay, the marriage happened obviously in the period of Sagittarius and Aries, but the engagement had happened in the sub period of Taurus, which is of course the Arudha Pada of his seventh house. So this is also an important indicator. Okay. Now another chart. Okay, Albert Einstein, we know that he was married multiple times. Okay, so look at the chart of Albert Einstein first. Let's calculate the Arudha Pada first. So, seventh house ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter has traveled 3 places, 1, 2, 3. Now, three houses from Jupiter, 1, 2, 3. So the Arudha is in the 11th house of Aries, right? Jupiter again for the people who are new. Jupiter rules the 7th house. It travels 3 houses away from the 7th house, 1, 2, 3. 3 houses away from Jupiter, 1, 2, 3. So the Arudha Pada of the 7th house lies in the 11th house, right? So Albert Einstein, he had, as I said, he was married multiple times. So his first wife, Mileva Marish, okay, he married Mileva Marish in January 1903 when he was running the Chara Dasha of Aries. Right, so as I said, Aries is the Arudha Pada of the 7th house. Now his Darakaraka is the sun. If you look at sun is the lowest degree among all the planets. His Darakaraka is the sun. So it makes no connection to Aries, right? It makes no connection to Aries in either the birth chart or the Navamsha. But the lord of the 7th house is Jupiter. Okay, the lord of the 7th house is Jupiter. So sun has no connection to Aries, right? But because Aries is the Arudha Pada of, because Aries is the Arudha Pada of the 7th house, so that the sub period of Aries, the Chara Dasha of Aries, that is, it gave him his first marriage. Okay. Then look at his chart. His second marriage to his cousin Eliza. Okay, his second marriage to his cousin Eliza happened in June 1919. Okay, so this period, this event happened in the Capricorn period. Okay, this event happened in the Chara Dasha of Capricorn. So that is very, very obvious. That is very, very obvious because if you look at the Navamsha, Surya has gone. Surya has gone to Cancer. 7th house from Cancer is Capricorn Amsha. Okay, so this is according to what we have studied, right? So the sub period during this marriage was Sagittarius, which is again the 7th house of his birth chart. So it matches, right? It matches. Okay. All right then. That is those are the charts that we had taken up. Now just provide a technical summary. You can make notes now. You can make notes later on. Okay, whatever we have discussed, right? So Darakaraka, number 1. Darakaraka is the planet with the lowest degree in the horoscope. Excluding Rahu and Ketu, I have taken the Chevan Karaka scheme because that is more acceptable in Jewish circles. Okay, you can take the 8th Darakaraka scheme also. Okay, then what you will do is that you will mark the signs that are occupied by the Darakaraka in the Rashi and the Navamsha, as well as the opposite signs. Okay, as well as the opposite signs that are from the Darakaraka and the Rashi and Navamsha. Okay, you will also mark the signs that are ruling the 7th house in both the Rashi and the Navamsha, irrespective of whether the Darakaraka is there or not, right? And then you will also make a note of the signs that are ruled by the Darakaraka. For example, if the Darakaraka is if the Darakaraka is Mars will rule Aries and Scorpio, right? And then you also find out the Arudha Pada of the 7th house in Rashi as well as in Navamsha. Okay. So the periods and sub-periods of all these signs that I have asked you to mark, they will give the potential relationship givers. Okay, so As I said, you will not be using the Vimshottari Dasha, you will be using the Chara Dasha scheme, the calculations as have been given by Shriti and Rauji. Okay. Now, one interesting thing that follows in from Parashara is that if two signs that are opposite to each other, okay, in 1-7 positions, can also bring a marriage, especially during the Dasha Antardasha. Okay. For example, if you are running the Dasha of Leo or the Antardasha of Aquarius, or if you are running the Antardasha of Aquarius and the Dasha of the Dasha of Aquarius and the Antardasha of Leo, it can bring marriage. Okay, it can bring marriage. Upapada, yes, we can, but I'll not confuse people here, Ashishji, because most of them are new to Jaimini. We will have a separate session on Upapada. Okay. Yes, it can be used. It can be used, of course. So for those who are not familiar with Upapada is the Arudha pada of the 12th house. Okay, that becomes very important not only to see marriage but also to calculate the longevity of marriage, right? So as I said, two signs which are 1-7 from each other in the Dasha Antardasha sequence can also bring marriage. For example, if the Dasha is of Virgo and the Antardasha is of Pisces, or if the Dasha is of Pisces and the Antardasha is of Virgo, then also marriage can be happen. Marriage can happen. This is true for all the signs. Okay, if the Dasha is of Aries, the Antardasha of Libra, or the Dasha is of Libra, the Antardasha is of Aries, and so on. Okay. Now, very important. Okay, very important. The transit conditions. I have given you the birth chart conditions. Now the transit conditions can also become important. Okay, the transit conditions can also become important. For example, you have made, as an astrologer, you have made the analysis, but the marriage is not happening. The client is coming to you and saying that, oh my God, sir, the marriage is not happening. Has your analysis been wrong? Then see if that transit Jupiter or transit Saturn is making a connection to the 7th house or not making a connection to the 7th house. Okay, sometimes marriage can be delayed if the transit planets specifically Saturn and Jupiter are not making a connection to the 7th house by transit. Okay, please see that, because sometimes delay in marriage can be caused if transit Jupiter or transit Saturn is not aspecting the 7th house, right? I'll answer why Saturn, because Saturn becomes Digbala in the 7th house. Okay, Saturn becomes Digbala in the 7th house, and Saturn aspect, the 7th house aspect of Saturn means all or nothing. Okay, all the aspects will have different meanings. The 7th house aspect of Saturn is all or nothing. Either Saturn will have this or he will not marry at all. This is the all or nothing attitude. We generally identify this all or nothing attitude to Mars, but at the end of the day, it is also related to Saturn. Okay, and the other thing, suppose someone is having a potential period for marriage. Don't blindly predict marriage, right? If the person is having a sannyas yoga in the chart, or if the person is having an outright denial of marriage in the chart, okay, then also marriage can be, marriage can stop or marriage cannot happen, marriage can be stuck. Okay, the potential deniers of marriage is for females if Jupiter is going to the 12th house of Navamsha, and for males if Venus is going to the 12th house of Navamsha. It can mean a very difficult, it can mean very difficult conditions for getting that person married. Okay, that person might not want to marry. Okay, this is just one condition for denial of marriage, right? And also ask the person if he is, if he or she is into some spiritual practices or some yogic practices, right? If there are a lot of spiritual practices, suppose the person is, has come to you for a consultation, and you're seeing that the person has been running a marriage period for 6 months. Don't predict that, okay, you'll get married for this in this year. Ask him, what his background is. If the person is not telling you his background, please ask him or her what the background is, right? Someone may have spent, say, 8 months in the caves of Himalayas and then may have come to you for consultation because he or she wants to get married. In that case, the marriage may it will get delayed, and so as to say. Okay. All right, then that's it from my end. I welcome your questions at this point of time, if you have any. Otherwise, we can end the meeting. Yes, thank you, Ashish. Thank you for joining, and thank you everyone for joining. It has been a pleasure to host you. I'll see you everyone. I'll see everyone on the 5th. We are having a webinar on decoding the Hora chart. So not much information is there on the Hora chart. So if people can join in there, they would be learning a lot. Yes, thank you, Twinkleji, and thank you everyone for meeting. The recordings will be available on YouTube either later tonight or or early morning tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, Devarshi, thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope you had a good time, dear.
Yeah, it's early morning here, so I had my breakfast and now having this starting my day with you.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Can you just elaborate on the concept of, you said that that it will have an image of itself. You were talking about the Lagna, and all of the houses have an image of themselves.
Mhm. See, this image is very, very important in triggering, in in triggering certain conditions. For example, suppose the 7th house of a person is afflicted. Okay, in that case, or the 7th lord is combust, so as to say. So in that case, what happens is, if you are triggering the Arudha of the 7th house, that can that can help the person immensely in getting married. For example, if the 5th lord is very, very weak, or if the 5th lord or the 5th house is afflicted, then the Arudha Pada of the if you do activities related to the Arudha Pada of the 5th house, then you can you can have your fame, you can have your children, you can you can have your mantras going for you, and so on. Right? Suppose someone has a someone is not getting married. In that case, one common advice that is given to given to people by astrologers is to fast on the day of the Upapada Lagna. Okay, there are certain conditions, ifs and buts associated with it, but that is a very common remedy. If you are fasting on the day which is ruled by the which is ruled by the lord of the Upapada Lagna, then it becomes very, very easy for the astrologer to bring the spouse into your life. Okay, because you are whatever we are seeing of each other is an image, right? For example, you may be sitting in front of me, but all I am seeing is an image of you. Okay, I am not seeing the real you. An image of yours has been formed in my eye. So Arudha Pada, Arudha works in the same way. It is the image of that house, of what we are seeing, or what the others are seeing, basically. Okay, for example, if the Arudha Pada of the first, if the Arudha Lagna of the first house is afflicted, right? If the Arudha Lagna itself is afflicted, that means the Arudha Pada of the first house is afflicted, then you may be earning in millions, but at the end of the day, your image will be of a wretched and poor guy who has who has no bank balance, who has no financial stability. That is how it works. It is what others, what we are projecting before others.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you talk about how to calculate the Ardha Lagna?
Lagna, it will be the same, just like the 7th house, it will be the same.
Okay.
It will be the same. If you want me to show, then suppose this is the chart of Albert Einstein, right? So I have to suppose I have to calculate the Arudha Lagna here. So this Arudha, the Lagna is ruled by Mercury. Mercury has moved 10 houses away from the Lagna. So 10 houses from Mercury. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it comes to the 7th house. Now, as I said, 7th house cannot be, 7th house from any house cannot be the Arudha Pada. So you have to calculate 10 houses away from this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the Arudha Lagna is in the 4th house.
Okay.
So see this, just look at here. So see this Mercury. Mercury again becomes the, Mercury also becomes the lord of the Arudha Lagna, right? So see this Mercury is combust. So you can see how Albert Einstein used to project himself. He was shabby, he was there with unkempt hair, and so on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this word Ardha Lagna, how do you spell it? Ardha? A-R-D-H-A?
A-R-U-D-H-A, Arudha.
Arudha. Oh, okay. A-R-U-D-H-A. Got it. Okay. Thanks. So have you ever done like Elizabeth Taylor's chart? Someone who got married many times?
We can do it. We can do it when you discuss Upapada. We can do that. Because
Okay.
Upapada will also show when the first marriage will break and when the second marriage will happen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, then I hope we don't have any questions. Yes, thank you so much for joining. I hope to see all of you guys on the 5th. And we will have these kind of small webinars from time to time. Namaste, everybody. Om Guru Namaha.
Namaste.